From the underbelly of cricket to the underworld to Nirbhaya, you have seen it all. Which has been your most difficult case?
Most difficult case, I think, has been Nirbhaya. Although the difficulty level of tracking it was not as much as some of the other cases that I've handled, but the overall situation has been the most trying and the most challenging. It was because of the pressures from the politicians, pressures from the crowd, the kind of media attention and world attention that the case was getting, and the pressure on me individually.
There was pressure on you to resign.
Yes.
I remember the headlines from the time. Even Justice Verma made a comment about, you were the commissioner of police at that time, just to put it in context for our audience today. And this horrific gang rape takes place of a 23-year-old medical student. It comes to be known as the Nirbhaya case. And you, as the police commissioner, are basically faced with the violation itself, the crowds who are on the streets protesting, and the political class. And there's an outcry like we've never seen before. Did you ever consider resigning at that time?
Not at all. Not in the least. For what? There is a horrific case every second week in Delhi. For instance, recently there has been such a horrific case in North Delhi.
Of the multiple stabbings of a young minor girl. Yes.
Then is it a reflection on the police? I think it's a reflection on the society, on the man who has committed that murder, on the crowd that had gathered there. Certainly not on the police, and least of all the police commissioner.
But the buck stops with the top, right?
No, the buck may stop, but it doesn't mean that the top should quit, should run away from the situation.
Did the chief minister at the time, who was Sheila Dikshit, she was the chief minister, but the police commissioner of Delhi, of course, doesn't report to the chief minister, you report to the home ministry. Did either the home minister or the chief minister ask you to quit?
Not personally.
But through messengers?
No. They were telling the media
that action will be taken.
Action should be taken. The commissioner should resign. The commissioner should be changed, and this and that. So it was all happening through the media and through other people. But nobody spoke to me directly. Nobody ever said you should go or why don't you resign. Nobody.
Describe your state of mind at that time.
I must say that unlike what others thought, I was very cool and composed. I knew.
You didn't think you were going to lose your job?
No, not in the least. Not even for a moment. Because I knew I was on a very firm ground. My boys had done nothing wrong. We had already made a breakthrough in the investigation within less than 24 hours. It happened at 10 p.m. on the 12th of December. 16th of December. And on the 17th at about 3 or 4 p.m., we had the first, culprit in our net, who was Ram Singh, the driver. And we already knew what had happened. So that quick was the investigation, and an absolutely blind case. All that we knew from the eyewitness, that there was this bus, white bus with Yadav written on it. And we had cracked the case, we had traced the bus, and we had traced the driver. So, and we already knew who the others were. So why should the police resign or police chief resign?
You remember what happened after that? You had mass protests and you had all kinds of people. You had genuine sort of students out there, young women marching for women's rights. You also had possibly people looking to create trouble. But what the world saw was a mass movement of women out on the streets marching for women. And the police handling of the crowds was not appreciated. Was that a mistake?
No, police handling was not appreciated till when? Till the 22nd, when we used force.
Yes, I'm talking about the use of force.
Yeah, so between the commencement
16th.
of the, and till that date, everything was fine. But
why did you use force?
We had to use force because at Hyderabad House, the head of state of Russia, was coming the next day. There was a state dinner for him. Uh, the crowds had already gone berserk. They were resorting to arson. If you recall, Doordarshan vehicle was burnt, set to fire. All the poles that had been set up on Rajpath for the 26th January parade, they had been pulled out and the policemen were being assaulted with them. If you recall, one of the head constables lost his life also. Uh, and everything was, and every kind of assurance given to the crowd was going totally unheard. I mean, no heed was being paid to them. The government announced that Justice Verma committee had been appointed to look into the rape laws. Then Justice Usha Verma committee,
I forget her name.
yeah, Usha Mehra, Justice Usha Mehra committee had been appointed to look into police failure, if any, and if anyone was found guilty, he would be punished, etc., etc. And mind you, all these committees were formed on my suggestion. This is not known. I have written in my book, Khaki Files, that when the government was looking for a solution, they asked me that what should we do. The cabinet secretary asked me, and I said, sir, whenever a crowd like this gathers, they, at the end of it, they want to go home having achieved something. So let us announce something which would satisfy them. They said, what could that be? I said, sir, they are protesting against weak rape laws. So let us form a judicial committee to look into rape laws. They are looking into police failures, if there were any. So let us appoint a committee, judicial committee, to look into police response to the whole incident. And the government did that immediately, and even after that, the crowd was not prepared to disperse, and they resorted to arson and so on and so forth.
But did you feel, today you have the benefit of time, you can look back at it more calmly. When you were in that moment, did you feel that so many decades of my career, and now this moment could make or break me?
You put it very well, Barkha, because I was very proud of what I had done all through my career, my days in the CBI, my various assignments in the Delhi police. And I thought that if this incident goes haywire, awry, then my entire, shall I say, body of work will be washed away. And nobody will remember me for what I had done.
Earlier.
And they will say, oh, this was the guy who was punished for Nirbhaya.
Yeah.
So to that extent, I was very worried. But when everything failed, and mind you, I have no hesitation in telling you that the order to use force was mine and mine alone. I was observing everything from the control room, from our communication room, where I could see visuals of what was happening. And I gave the orders that now resort to force, disperse the crowd, use water cannon, now use tear gas shells, now cane charge and disperse at any cost. Short of using firing, do everything to disperse the crowd. It was my decision. I have no.
And do you look back at it with any?
No, none whatsoever, because we were left with no option. There was
because of the state visit, or because it was unraveling situation?
The overall situation. State visit was just one factor. When the crowd goes out of control, when they're resorting to arson, they're resorting to violence against policemen and against common members of public and so on and so forth.
You spent some part of your life looking at the underbelly of cricket. Whether it's the Hanse Krone, match fixing. Later in your book, you talk about pitches being, they're trying to doctor pitches, right? Kanpur mein. How dirty actually is the underbelly of cricket?
As dirty as can be. Because big money is involved. The betting markets, you and I cannot even imagine what is the magnitude of the money that is there in the betting markets.
So tell us the story of how a pitch was sought to be doctored.
A certain person who was in charge of putting up flex boards on the stadium.
This was the match between Gujarat Titans and I forget now.
I think it was.
I know it was in Kanpur.
Yes.
But go on. Yeah.
So an attempt was made to doctor the pitch by over irrigating it, putting too much water over it, because then it becomes a low scoring game. And the man who was masterminding it was the man who was in charge of putting up flex boards in the stadium. So he was paid a huge amount of money by a bookie who was camping in Kanpur in a hotel, the same hotel where the cricketers were staying and the same hotel where I was staying. And we got a tip off, and with the help of the Kanpur police, we organized a raid and picked up those bookies, and we prevented the match from being kind of sabotaged, and that's how it went.
In this case, you wrote that the players were not involved in the manipulation of the pitch. But there have been other instances. You have been famously responsible for sending some players of the Rajasthan Royals, into jail. Talk a little bit about that scam.
It was very interesting. We were monitoring telephones in connection with terrorism.
Okay. Nothing to do with cricket.
Nothing to do with cricket. And suddenly we start hearing conversations involving cricket, that someone was being compromised, someone was being given instructions how to send messages, that he was now going to throw a no ball, to pull a towel from behind his back out and tuck it in his front pocket, and then throw a no ball or throw 14 runs away in that over and so on. And then we identified 3 cricketers who had been compromised, and they were all playing matches on 3 different dates, almost spaced out over a period of a month and a half. So you had to keep hold your nerves, because if there was any leakages from the police itself, the whole operation would have gone bust. So first we recorded the proceedings of a match, an IPL match, in which one cricketer did the bidding of the bookie as per the understanding between the two. Then we waited for the second match, and then we waited for the third match. And third match was incidentally the last match of the IPL, that was in Bombay. And at the end of it, we swooped down and arrested all the 3. They were, of course, Srishant, Ajit Chandila, and Ankit Chavan, all 3 of RRR, Rajasthan Royals. And and the rest is history. It was a big.
And I think you gave a statement at the time saying you can't watch the IPL anymore.
That's true.
Has that changed?
Not really.
Because do you see it as a corroded universe?
Yeah, it is always under a cloud of suspicion.
Do you believe that this was an exception, or do you believe that? And I'm going to break the hearts of all cricket fans by asking this question, but do you believe that there are more players who are part of manipulating matches than have been called out?
Barkha, the thing is, we would never know. As I said, we were not monitoring the cricketers. We were monitoring telephone numbers concerned with terrorism. And we came across this spot fixing of 2013 IPL.
Yeah.
Similarly, when the Hansi Cronje case happened, numbers were being monitored in the case of an extortion, and it emerged that Hansi Cronje was being. So we do not know. It is not as if all cricket matches and all cricketers are under surveillance, and it can be said established, and it can be said with confidence that everything is kosher. You do not know.
But you've become a cynic about cricket.
Yes.
Because you think the money riding is too high.
too high, and
But who is controlling the cricket mafia? If there is, when I say cricket mafia, I mean the mafia of the underbelly, which is doctoring pitches, which is asking for matches to be manipulated. Are these bookies? Is this someone more powerful? Like when you look at Rajasthan Royals, where did you trace it back to?
So the 2013 spot fixing case during IPL 6, as you know, was traced back to none other than Mr. Dawood Ibrahim. And we have taped telephonic conversations. We know the entire hierarchy of the booking mafia. That Dawood sat at the top, and who were the next rung, and and how through a web of bookies and fixers they eventually reached the cricketers. And
So Dawood Ibrahim is
Yeah.
sitting at the top of the pyramid that is actually looking to manipulate cricket in India.
that's true, and maybe manipulate cricket even outside.
Let's talk about Dawood Ibrahim. At a book launch in Mumbai, you said very interestingly that you once thought that Dawood Ibrahim could be brought back, you called him a certain gentleman, could be brought back from Pakistan using non-state actors, using unconventional means. That this man was Pakistan's never going to extradite him, Pakistan's never going to officially own up to the fact that he lives in Clifton, Karachi. So you said that there was an entire plan, a blueprint drawn up to bring him back, to, in other words, take him out, like maybe the Americans took out Bin Laden from Pakistan, but it was not given a go-ahead. Can you tell us more?
No, there are two operations.
Yeah.
One operation was that I was directly in touch with Dawood Ibrahim, speaking to him with due permissions from my bosses.
Can we start there? Tell us about when you spoke to Dawood Ibrahim.
Yeah, so we had a fellow called Manish Lala in our custody, and he said that he could put me across to Dawood Ibrahim, and he said that Dawood Ibrahim was interested in returning.
When was this?
This was in the year 1995, I think.
Okay.
And I took permission from my bosses. I had a secret telephone in my office, and I used that. And
secret telephone means like how many people knew that phone existed?
Very few.
Okay.
Very few.
Okay.
So using that telephone, Manish Lala got in touch with Dawood Ibrahim through a series of what are called cutouts.
Which means?
Which means that he speaks to somebody, and that person says, okay, hang on, somebody will call you back.
Acha.
Then somebody else calls back, and then that fellow says, okay, you hang on, somebody. So, you cannot directly trace
the number. So is it like a burner?
Sorry?
Is it like a burner phone?
Yes.
Okay, then?
And then finally, he spoke to Dawood Ibrahim, and he told him that, well, I'm in the custody of Mr. So-and-so, and he looks like a very reasonable person. And, I myself, there was a backstory to his coming into my custody also, which I have written in my first book, Dial D for Dawn. In fact, the story, Dial D for Dawn, is the story of my conversations with Dawood Ibrahim. So, he convinced Dawood Ibrahim to speak to me. So he spoke to me, and
क्या बोले आप उनको?
He asked me.
Tell us, what's the first sentence? So, you're a police officer. You have been, the whole country, this is India's most wanted gangster. अब आप उनके साथ फोन पे हैं, आप पहले 4 words क्या बोलते हैं उनको?
नहीं, तो मैं बता रहा हूँ. तो मैंने कहा कि हाँ, तो क्या कहना चाहते हैं आप? So he said, आपको क्या लगता है कि मैं बॉम्बे बॉम्ब ब्लास्ट में इन्वॉल्व हूँ? तो मैंने कहा कि आपको मैंने सवाल पूछने का अधिकार नहीं दिया है. आप मुझसे कुछ कहना चाहते थे, मनीष ने मुझे बताया है. आप बताइए आप क्या कहना चाहते हैं. So then he cooled down a bit, and then he said, नहीं देखिए, अगर मुझे करना होता तो मुझे कहीं बाहर के लड़के नहीं भेजने पड़ते. मेरे तो अपने लड़के ऑलरेडी बॉम्बे में हैं, और ये है वो है, मेरा अपना इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर है. तो मैंने कहा कि आपके पास क्या RDX भी होता है? So that stumped him. He had not anticipated that. I said, I hope you know that RDX, huge amount of RDX was used during the bomb blast. So you mean to say that you keep RDX, you and your boys keep RDX in Bombay as a matter of routine? So then he said, देखिए ऐसा है, ये टाइगर ने ऐसा किया है, टाइगर मेमन ने ऐसा किया है, उसने ऐसा किया है, मेरा तो कोई रोल नहीं है, मेरी तो बहन अभी वहीं रहती है, मेरी माँ अभी बॉम्बे में ही रहती है, अगर मुझे ये करना होता तो मैं भी टाइगर की तरह उन लोगों को निकाल के ले आता इधर और ये वो. सो ऐसे देखिए, उनकी बात मत कीजिए, आप अपनी बात कीजिए. आपने मनीष को कहा है कि आप मुझसे बात करना चाहते हैं, शायद आप वापस आना चाहते हैं. ही सेड, हाँ मैं वापस तो आना चाहता हूँ, लेकिन मेरी कुछ शर्तें हैं. तो मैंने कहा, बताइए क्या शर्तें हैं? तो उसने कहा कि देखिए, मुझे एक तो सिर्फ बॉम्बे बॉम्ब ब्लास्ट में आप ट्राई करेंगे, मेरा ट्रायल और केसेस में नहीं होगा. जो बॉम्बे पुलिस ने मेरे खिलाफ झूठे बड़े सारे मुकदमे बना रखे हैं, वो नहीं चलेंगे. पहली शर्त ये है. दूसरी शर्त है कि मुझे हाउस अरेस्ट में रखा जाएगा,
जेल में जाइए.
हाँ. और तीसरी शर्त यह है कि आप मुझे खुद लेने आएंगे. हाँ. तो देन आई वाज कीपिंग माय बॉसेस इन द पिक्चर. हाँ.
और ये सारा कॉन्वर्सेशन एक बारी में हुआ कि काफी सारे?
नहीं, ओवर 3 इंस्टॉलमेंट्स.
ओके.
सो दिस वाज द लास्ट इंस्टॉलमेंट.
अच्छा.
सो ऐसे, अच्छा ये शर्तें हैं, ठीक है, मैं आपसे फिर बात करूंगा. And then, of course, I shared it with my bosses, and they said, there's no question of any conditional return, and we cannot agree to these conditions.
But suppose he had come back and been tried in the Bombay blast case, he would have been put away for life.
Yeah.
बाकी दो शर्तें तो अजीब लगती हैं.
हाँ. So that option was there.
Yeah.
But anyhow, the consensus was that I shall not speak to him any
Anymore.
further.
Do you think that was a mistake?
Perhaps it was. Perhaps it was. It should have been, this conversation and this whole thing should have been pursued.
Why do you think he wanted to come back?
See, contrary to popular perception, these guys in Pakistan, they are second class, third class citizens. They are a burden on the ISI. The ISI abandons them at the drop of a hat. And the reason why the rest of the Memon family returned, they don't feel comfortable there. They want to face the law and be done with it. And not only the Memons returned, there were several others who came back. They came back willingly on their own, and they faced trial, and if they were sentenced, they were sentenced. If not, they were let out.
When you were dealing with the underworld, with dreaded gangsters like Dawood Ibrahim, did you ever fear for your life?
Not really. I will be very honest. My family used to be very concerned.
Did you fear for their lives?
Yes, for my family I was concerned. But, I've written my book also. There is one thing which I grant to these gangsters. They treat people from law enforcement, the police, with a certain amount of deference and awe. In the sense that they know that these guys are going after us because it is their duty. There is nothing personal. There is nothing personal between Neeraj Kumar and Dawood Ibrahim. Right? So, you would rarely hear of them seeking revenge on policemen. And they will seek revenge on policemen only if the policemen have double-crossed them.
कि आपने कुछ बोला, किया कुछ,
या आपने दूसरे गैंग को कुछ इन्फॉर्मेशन दे दी, इत्यादि इत्यादि. Otherwise, they will, they unlike the white-collar criminals who make it personal.
For example, in your experience?
In my experience, I am myself a victim of a certain income tax officer whom I booked while I was in the CBI, who is hounding me till date in the courts on all kinds of false allegations. and I still have to, defend myself in the courts of law.
But come back to this idea that Dawood Ibrahim was at the top of this IPL manipulation. Ab Dawood Ibrahim would be quite old today. When you say Dawood Ibrahim, do you mean him or do you mean his operated mafia?
No, he is himself very fond of cricket,
Huh.
and he himself,
And he is related by marriage to Javed Miadat.
yeah, that is. I mean, even if he was not related, he has always been very fond
वो
of.
पुरानी तस्वीरें जब हम छोटे थे ना of Dawood Ibrahim in cricket boxes outside India watching matches.
Yes, मैं उतना छोटा नहीं था, मैं तो वहाँ था, शारजा में गया था एक बार.
मतलब याद है मुझे वो तस्वीरें.
हाँ, तो उस समय से लेकर आज तक he has always been very interested
But
in.
what would he get out of match fixing an IPL Rajasthan Royals team? What is it in it? Like, what
Oh
is this
my
game?
God.
What is the larger game?
My God, I mean, it's the magnitude or the total amount of money involved. You cannot imagine.
Give us a sense. Why is this such a big scam that Dawood Ibrahim, wanted for terrorism, is now involved in manipulating IPL matches in India?
See, the ultimate purpose of organized crime is money,
Right,
right?
right.
So, this entire match fixing and this whole betting racket is a racket for monetary gain and nothing else, right? If you are able to manipulate the odds, you cannot imagine how much money you would earn. If you are sure that a certain event is going to happen in a certain cricket match, and if you bet on that event, you will overnight be a billionaire.
So why haven't we as a country been able to clean this underbelly up?
For various reasons. The most important reason is that we are insensitive.
आपत्ति है कि वो
Yes,
आईपीएल
हाँ.
का मजे हैं, बाकी कुछ सोचना नहीं.
ऊपर में सब ठीक ठाक चल रहा है. The test matches are happening, the one day internationals are happening, and most importantly the IPL is happening. And we are raking in the moolah. अब वो नीरज कुमार साहब या ये साहब वो साहब कहते रहे करप्शन है, ये है, वो कहते रहे, किसी को फर्क नहीं पड़ता.
How deep is the corruption in cricket according to you?
I can say with certain amount of confidence that the top levels of cricket today are much cleaner than they were earlier. Not because people have suddenly become very honest, but because people know that if they are caught, their careers will go.
Yeah.
So they are very, very careful, and they then repeated education programs when they are told what to do, what not to do. That awareness was not there earlier. Before every match, everybody is gathered, and the anti-corruption officer tells them, well, I'm here to remind you for the umpteenth time that these are the do's and these are the don'ts. And I have done that myself with the greats of cricket, telling them what to do and what not to do. And this is repeated to them. And I used to tell them that this is like your muscle memory. Just like you play your shots on the nets again and again and again, so that it's almost a reflex action.
Yeah.
Similarly, I'm telling you this again and again because this is deeply entrenched in your muscle memory. That you, just like a flight attendant tells you that you must tie your seat belt before every flight.
And sure, he says it every day.
Every day.
Memory,
so that you're reminded again and again. And so the reason why corruption in the top echelons are relatively under control is because of these steps, but the lower levels of cricket, that is, I'm talking about the private leagues, I'm talking about the domestic matches and so on and so forth. And we talked about, sexual favors and monetary favors. I've written about the fact that even our former captain, Mr. Virat Kohli's father, was asked for money for him to be selected to a junior team, Delhi team. He was asked for 20 lakhs, which Virat
Asked
has,
by whom?
by the selectors. He has himself revealed it in an interview. It's not something that
Imagine.
imagine.
आप सोचिए, हाँ.
हाँ, तो somebody as talented as Virat Kohli, his father is being asked that you pay, and the boy, he said in an interview that I cried for 10 days because I was left out of the match because my father could not pay that money. So if that is happening with a talented player like Virat Kohli,
तो down the ranks क्या
Yeah.
हो रहा होगा?
so the point I'm trying to make, and this is the main thesis of my book also, is that if we do not look at the second and the third rungs of the sport, which is as corrupt as it was earlier, if not more corrupt, then the players come through these ranks and they reach the top. How do you expect the top levels then to be clean?
Yeah.
So we have to pay attention there.
Yeah, I wish
But
we
then,
would.
then who is there to listen to me or to listen to anybody else? So it is a gray area. People are happy. We are like ostriches who bury our heads in the sand.
वो एक ना एक दिन तो निकालना पड़ेगा ना सर.
निकलता है ना, समय समय पर निकलता है,
जी.
और फिर स्कैंडल होता है, फिर कमिटीज बनती है, फिर उसके बाद अंत में कुछ नहीं होता.
बिल्कुल. ये बताइए, towards the end, who is the most terrifying criminal that you have met face to face?
I mean, the definition of terrifying, Barkha.
Terrifying means dreaded, most wanted, दुनिया के लिए, not आपके लिए. जैसे मुझे या आम औरत को लगे कि भाई.
देखो, मेरा ख्याल तो ये है कि जो हमारी आम धारणा है कि जो गैंगस्टर्स होते हैं,
जैसे पिक्चर्स में जैसे
Pictures
दिखता
दिखाते
है
हैं.
कि एक पुलिस अफसर होता है, एक अंडरवर्ल्ड का डॉन होता है. Is it like that? You've had
नहीं.
some parts of your life adapted into, cinematic representations. Is it authentic? मतलब, in your own experience, when you've been in those situations, how does it actually play out?
See, I have been face to face with a gangster from the Mumbai underworld called Salim Kutta, who was standing across a counter in a shop in Nepal. And I had been forewarned that he is always armed. I have been face to face with the killer of Sardar Behan Singh, the former chief minister of Punjab. Face to face across a counter in a travel agent's office. I have written about all these experiences in my book. So, and when we searched him, sure enough, there was a cyanide pill in his pagdi.
In that Behan Singh assassins.
Yeah. This was Jagtar Singh Tara. But my experience, Barkha, will disappoint you actually. These dreaded criminals are I found them far more humane. You are aware I brought Aftab Ansari from Dubai, and we traveled in the same aircraft, special aircraft, sitting face to face. You talk to them, they will look so humane.
Meaning that you won't know, अगर आपको पता नहीं होता तो आप सोचते हैं
you
कि
can
ये
even
killers
have
हैं.
coffee with them in a restaurant, and you will not realize that he's a gangster. He has attacked the American center, and he was capable of doing all kinds of. I want to tell your viewers that it is the white collar criminals who are far more dangerous in every which way.
But what has been your most dramatic encounter?
There have been several, 4-5 cases in which I went through that aha moment, So I said, oh my God, this is the ultimate of
for a police officer.
For a moment of elation.
Yeah, what were those moments?
And it was always, there were all these moments were at the end of very challenging cases where the difficulty quotient of the operation was very, very high. One was, of course, the Memons. Bringing the Memons from Dubai, first tracing them, Then, they are being chased by the ISI, hoodwinking the ISI, putting the logistics together.
How did you hoodwink the ISI? ये कहानी बताइए, ये एक कहानी तो बताइए.
Uh, See, the man we had sent to trace the Memons was a member of the Memon family itself.
और वो क्यों माना?
वो माना because Yaqub, who was in our custody, convinced him that he should go. Otherwise, they would be done away with by the ISI.
Huh.
So he went, he traced them. But after tracing them, he found that wherever he would go, he was being followed.
By the ISI.
By the ISI. By a group of people.
We assume were the ISI.
Yeah, ISI. So he was changing hotels. And it was an operation between him and me on phone. And mind you, those were not the days of mobile phones and so on. So he would ring me up and said कि आपने तो मुझे फंसा दिया, मेरे पीछे ये पड़ गए हैं ऐसे वैसे. And how we would make him change the hotels and go from one, and we'll change the place where the Memons were staying. And eventually, I involved our embassy there, and the consul general. He had to go in his official car and to the place where this man was staying, the man we had sent, and along with him, then they went with 2-3 other vans to where the Memons were hiding, and they were put in the vans. And mind you, what had happened was that earlier they had booked tickets for Delhi from Dubai, and the ISI cancelled those tickets.
Yeah.
They just called up the office
and cancelled
them. So when just before on the day of the flight, when they checked up, they said that your tickets are cancelled. You called up and cancelled the tickets. And then we understood the game. So, and then our people were there at the airport also, Dubai airport. They said that the ISI is here in full strength. They are, keeping an eye. So what we did was that I told the consul general that you pretend that you're going to Dubai airport, and there is a point, because I had traveled there frequently, so I knew that there was a point from where you could detour to Sharjah. So I had made parallel bookings for them
from Sharjah.
There were bookings in Dubai and there were bookings in Sharjah. And the bookings in Sharjah did not have any names. They just had a PNR number. One PNR number for all of them. So the ISI guys saw in the flight manifest that they are booked there. So they were waiting for them at the airport. So the carcade moved. After a point, they stopped pursuing the carcade because they knew that eventually they'll go to they had already tied up with the Dubai authorities to stop them. But they took a detour and went to Sharjah. And then they flew out of Sharjah and they couldn't do a thing about it.
Yeah, amazing.
So it was an amazing thing, I had spent several sleepless nights. Whole lot of effort had gone into that operation. Human beings were involved. A newborn child was involved. So the difficulty level of that operation was very, very high.
Yeah.
And similarly, the difficulty level of the operation leading to the return of Aftab Ansari was high. So was the arrest of the income tax officer that I just mentioned.